Secretary, some critics say the U.S. strategy in Ukraine has been to give Ukraine enough assistance not to lose, but not enough to win, for fear of provoking Russia, because Russia is a nuclear power. Will there be any restrictions on the new weapons that are being sent, the ATACMS and others, where they can be used, where they cannot be used? And what would you say to Republicans who voted against aid to Ukraine, who say that you don't have a strategy? What is your strategy?
Thanks, Jen. We said from the very beginning, you heard the president say that our goal is to see a democratic, independent, and sovereign Ukraine that has the capability to defend itself and deter aggression going forward. And so you see us working towards that end with not only the capability that we're providing Ukraine in the current battle, but the kinds of things that we're building, helping Ukraine build for the future, pointing back to the capability coalitions. So in terms of what Ukraine needs on a day-to-day basis, as you know, I talk to Minister Umerov every week, and we talk about what his requirements are, what's most needed, what's most critical, and when, you know, in days gone by, when others were talking about different types of systems, we were focused on providing Ukraine adequate air defense capabilities. And we've seen how important that was over time, and it will continue to be important going forward. And without that focus, without that kind of capability, Ukraine would be in much worse shape because of the capability that's resident in the Russian air forces. So I would caution anyone in saying that, you know, in believing that one type of system is going to be a silver bullet. It's going to be a combination of a number of systems. It's going to be dependent upon whether or not Ukraine can effectively employ these systems and sustain those systems, and whether or not Ukraine can mobilize an adequate number of troops to replenish its ranks. And so we continue to work on all those things simultaneously, and we really want Ukraine to be successful. We've invested a lot. This is really important, not just for Ukraine, but for the world, and for all the reasons that you heard me talk about in my opener. So.
And General Brown, can Ukraine win?
Well, you know, the key part here is to make sure Ukraine can defend itself. And as the Secretary highlighted, and I've talked about here recently, is that you know, unchecked aggression leads to more aggression. And so this is why it is so important for us to put Ukraine in a place that it can defend itself, and that we don't have this broaden to a much wider conflict. And when I think about how World War II started, or previous world wars, this is why this is so important that we have Ukraine Defense Contact Group and all the nations around the world that are focused on ensuring Ukraine is successful.
And Ukraine can be successful if it has the right amount of security assistance. So we are all very grateful for Congress passing the supplemental. And again, if you think about what Russia intended to do early on, what its strategic objectives were, and the fact that it failed to achieve any strategic objectives, and 2 years later, 793 days later, Ukraine is still fighting and still holding its ground. And that's quite remarkable. And it's holding that ground even in the face of you know, a question as to whether or not we were going to continue to support them. That question is off the table now. And that has reassured the Ukrainians, but also it's reassured our allies and partners around the globe as well. So.
Let's go to Washington Post.